Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Ross from the weekly Dice Arena, coming at you with the continued coverage of the 2019 Dice Masters National Championship. We have made it to the cut. We have been through 4 rounds of Swiss competition, and we have eliminated all but 8 players. Down to the top 8, folks, and my, is this one going to be a treat. We are about to watch the 2018 national champion versus the 2018 world champion of Dice Masters. That's right, in the first round, the round of 8, we are about to watch Arge versus Junior. It's going to be wild. Let's see what they're playing. Let's start off first with Arge's team. Hot dog, we've got some villain craziness with a little collector craziness, a card that's been around for a while. People have been dabbling for a couple years now with that one. But let's talk about some things that really stand out and maybe some flair on an old classic. So people have seen the Don't Call Me Gabi. When he is fielded, deal 1 damage to your opponent for all villains, yours and your opponent's, in the field zone. It's wild. That's tons of burst damage. Tons of burst damage. And then if we count the villains, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 villains on Arge's team. But wait, there's more. There's a little twist on the team here with the rare danger room. It makes, when it rolls, all characters lose their affiliation and gain the villain affiliation. So the potential villain numbers here are wild between yours and your opponent's when this hits, as well as Norman. Now, to get that timing right, that's where he's going to be using the collector. So collector allows you to bring a character in, field a character, which is critical because you can trigger when fielded abilities on a turn, yours or your opponent's, that you would like. So the idea here of Arge's team generally is get some villains, and a lot of these villains are for control, like mainly these two. He's going to be controlling his opponent with villains. He's going to roll Danger Room. Everything's going to become a villain. Then he's going to use the collector's ability to bring in Nabi on his turn and his opponent's turn, which is absolutely wild. The burst potential is gigantic. Now, if that gets shut down, let's say there's something, direct damage isn't going to work out. He's got this fallback here from Kree Captain. Kree Captain gets +1/+1 for every active villain character die. Again, pairs very well with his rare danger room. And a card here, Black Canary, that says, when Black Canary attacks, villain character dice cannot block. And if everything is a villain, then nothing can block, folks. So the combination of those two is just a great backup win condition, maybe his primary win condition. We'll see which route he chooses to take. He's got Wrecker for some control, especially because there's a lot of global heavy teams out there. We have watched the Iceman team with the ping. We've watched the Atom teams with the spin up. We've watched just tons of teams that are pretty reliant on global. So we'll see if Wrecker becomes a huge piece of this team or just sort of a, what is my opponent trying to do sort of piece. Really excited. Got Villainous Pack just in case as well. Great, well-rounded team. Excited to see which route Arge will take with this one. Yeah, I mean, villains are a good time, always, and Norman Osborn makes them rowdy, as well as Collector. Let's see what Junior's going to be playing. Aha! A slight flashback, a slight mimicry of his 2018 team. He's got Yanti. Instead of the super rare this year, he's running the common variant, which is unblockable when you use an action. Pseudo Dragon makes your attuned characters deal 2 damage instead of 1. Cosmic Cube here going to pair well with Yanti, going to be able to get those actions for very cheap. It's a discounting tool as well as an action itself, which is it will just double dip in the Yanti craziness. Zendala Simber, another cheap attuned character. Green Devil Mask for control. Billy Club probably for the fixer, but the control element of this die is pretty awesome too. Shriek. Now Gold Dragon. This is sort of, to me, this is sort of the junior pick of the team right here. So Gold Dragon, super pivotal last year and more in the meta last year, but still a lingering possibility for this year. And as far as I know, this is the only one that showed up at Nats. So kudos for that. Breath Weapon 3 plus Attune plus the giant stats on this thing just make it a combat damage alternative in 1 dice. You bring a 1, you clear the field with Breath Weapon, you hit for a ton of damage. I think the actions he's going to be going for. So Cosmic Cube going to be able to get his actions cheaper. He's going to be looking for Green Devil Mask. And always chaining these investigations is a good time. You get to draw and roll 2 dice when it rolls. So you can have big explosive turns with lots of dice. It's going to be definitely a showdown. 2 super veteran pilots playing 2 well-rounded teams. It's just gonna be a brawl, and I'm super excited. Let's jump right in and see what we got here. All right, looks like we are going to be watching Junior go first. Gets his 3 energy. Doesn't like any of them. Goes for the full reroll. I imagine his first purchase is something that involves a bolt, which he doesn't have any bolts right now. Sort of puts him in an awkward situation here. We do know that there's Resurrection on his team, which makes a shield pretty good. He is going to use the Billy Club Mask Fixer there. Still doesn't help him. He really wanted a bolt this first turn. Doesn't have one, which is interesting. Pays 3 for an investigation. Passes to Arge. Arge with another awkward first turn roll here. He doesn't want 3 sidekicks. But seeing that Junior had to make such an odd first turn as well, I think he's not quite as scared. Rerolls them all. Gets some stuff he's more comfortable using here. Lots more flexible with 2 question marks. He's going to pay 2 fists for the Kree Captain Global, making his next purchase 3 less, and purchases the Collector. So first turn Collector is pretty wild. Something that you couldn't really do consistently when Collector was first coming out. But nowadays you can reach for Collector on turn 1 fairly easily. Neither player with any Clayface shenanigans this turn, but that's an easy way to make large dice come out quicker. Spends 3 on a Shriek and resurrects into the bag. Gets an extra die for next turn. Also, just a shout out to the playmats here. We got Arge's custom playmat with his magnetic stuff. It's really awesome. Versus Junior's, what is this? The OP premiere event. Sort of a sought after, legendary, old school Dice Masters prize. So, shout outs to the mats on this game. Arge has his 4. We'll see what he goes for next. I mean, Collector first turn. Maybe he reaches for control here. Sidekick Mask, not exactly what he wanted, especially since the only fixer on the table is the Mask Fixer. So in terms of globals, the things to be watching for in this game, Villainous Pact is pay a mask. Resurrection is pay a shield. Kree Captain Global is pay 2 fists. The Danger Room Global is pay a bolt to deal 1 damage to a villain. Then we have the Fixer and Static Field Global on Arge's team, which is also a mask. So mask's not the worst thing to roll, but at this point in the game, I think Arge really wanted energy here instead of a sidekick. He is going to spin that down with Billy Club, which will allow him to buy a 3 cost, as well as Villainous Pact. Sadly, he can only buy mask or shield characters. And here I am, eating my words. He does buy a investigation for 3. And gets it out for next turn. 5 dice here for Junior. I think he'd really like to have that Shriek to shut down Collector before that becomes a real menace. The problem with Shriek is that it adds a villain that Arge didn't have to pay for. Adds another villain to the field, so Norman Osborn becomes that much stronger, even though you are containing your opponent some here. Shriek is out. Blanks Collector. Spends 2 on Spends 2 on a Yanti. Plays Investigation after purchasing. Super smart. That way that extra die is in the bag and potentially could come out here and be rolled by Junior. He does get 2 sidekicks instead. Not exactly what he's looking for. Villainous Packs and Resurrects with his last 2 energy to prep 2 dice for next turn. Really gearing up for a big turn next time. Now that he has shut down the immediate threat of Collector. Speaking of Collector, Arge pulls Collector +3. Looks like he may have pulled 5 dice on accident. Reaches back in. Collector +3 again, anyway. He also has that Investigation in prep. He gets to roll this turn. Might be reaching for a Shriek of his own here to deal with Junior's Shriek. Again, which is really no harm. Oh man, 3 shields though. Gonna be hard to get a Shriek with shields. Decides to reroll those. He does get Investigation, which is gonna be helpful. Two masks and a sidekick, not a whole lot better, but in terms of usable energies for globals, they're much better. He is going to get an extra 2 dice here from Investigation. It's a sidekick, refills and draws another sidekick. See how those 2 end up. Hopefully not masks for his sake. Another shield. Shield's been pretty sticky this game thus far. But does get a bolt, which is the energy type I think he's looking to spend this turn. Either on Scarlet Witch to shut down attune damage from Junior, or to buy a Shriek of his own to Shriek Junior's Shriek. Gonna take a minute to mull it over. Again, these pilots super good at the game, and you know, have been doing this level of play for years. Their bag management is on point. Arge is counting his dice in his bag right now to think about how he needs to churn and spend this turn. He bought his own Shriek for 3. Fields Collector for 1 and fields the sidekick. The option here being he could spin that sidekick down, opts not to do that, passes to Junior. So actually gets some bolts this time. Would really like the action here so that Yanti is unblockable. He does get Yanti, doesn't get an action though. 2 sidekicks, not exactly what he's looking for either, because he can only spend 1 of them down to a mask. Spins a bolt, fields Yanti, fields a sidekick. Going to take that back just for a second. Maybe decide on a different route. Maybe spin the generic to field instead, since generic energies cannot be used to trigger any of the globals on either of these players' teams. But a bolt could be good to deal damage to a villain character, which potentially Shriek would come out and he would be able to maybe use that. Makes a sidekick into a mask, does spin the bolt to field Yanti, buys another Investigation for 3, and Villainous Packs another die for next turn. No attacks this turn. Arge pulls 3 sidekicks, adds in a... doesn't get his Shriek, which would have been, I think, the ideal pull here. Sidekick, mask, shield. The shields are just at this point a little ridiculous. Again, I think Arge really would like a bolt this turn. Scarlet Witch could help him shut down Junior's game plan here pretty heavily. Does get a question mark, which could serve that purpose. But in terms of who's trying to play the beatdown here, Arge is definitely sticking around for the long haul. You know, the bigger his field gets and the bigger Junior's field gets, the more powerful his Rare Danger Room becomes, the more powerful Nabi becomes. He does spend 3 on a Scarlet Witch. For those that don't know, Scarlet Witch shuts down action-based teams because her text says, while she's active, during your opponent's roll and reroll step, your opponent must reroll action dice landing on action faces and cannot reroll action dice on energy faces. So it essentially, just the probabilities that your opponent's action-based team would continue to function is cut very heavily. Speaking of actions, 2 investigations for Junior roll, which is going to help him string together a mess of dice. He rerolls a sidekick into a sidekick. Which again, having 1 sidekick, not a huge deal, because there is 1 energy fixer on the table. Rolling 2 sidekicks is where things get a little messy. Spends 1 investigation, does an attune damage to Arge, down to 19. First blood has been taken. Rolls 2 more sidekicks, gets Bolt, which is interesting. Again, Shriek not out yet for Arge, but when that does happen, bolts are going to be much more important for Junior's team. Spends 2 on a Pseudo Dragon, which again amplifies those attune characters. Has 1 more investigation to spend here, which means at least 2 more dice in the reserve pool. Going to spend 2 on a Yuan-Ti. He's doing purchasing here in the middle of his turn so that he can, again, refill his bag. The attune damage from that investigation being dealt to Arge's face. Again, attune could be used 1 damage to a target character or player. Spends 1 to field Yuan-Ti. Villainous Pax with the question mark. Gets Pseudo Dragon out for next turn. It's when the attune magic is really going to start taking off. Arge really needs to roll his Shriek this turn in terms of staying on pace to shut down all of Junior's options. Gets an investigation of his own, which is nice. His Shriek does roll character face. Again, very important. He's contemplating keeping this bolt, again, for the same reasons that Junior would want to keep his bolts. Shriek, having 3 defense on her highest side, means that 3 bolts and 3 uses of the Danger Room Global, she could be gone. Which, lends itself to shrieking a different target. Interesting. Rerolls and gets Bolt Sidekick again. I think we just saw both players reroll a sidekick into a sidekick, which is not likely. So Danger Room has not been used here for Arge. He's going to refill, use that investigation, and draw 2 more dice to add to this turn. See what he gets. 2 sidekicks. Bolt Shield. Shield could be used for resurrection if that needs to happen this turn. Also, at some point, all energy is pretty good in terms of Collector's ability. You do need to have the correct energy for the character that you'd like to bring in, but the others are just energy quantities. Pays a bolt to field Shriek. Shriek is now blanking. Junior Shriek passes over the Shriek token, thanks to Reg. Beautiful tokens that make the game easier to watch and easier to commentate. Villainous Pax or Resurrects. I didn't see what energy he was using, but preps 1 dice for next turn and passes over to Junior. He's got actions, he's got Pseudo Dragon, and he's got Yuan-Tis. This could be a pretty large turn in terms of damage. Arge has no masks saved for his Static Field Global, which means these Yuan-Tis will be going through unblocked. If Junior decides to attack with them, he might just want to hang out in the field and just keep attuning Arge to death. Didn't get the other investigation to roll, which would have been sort of the Pays a mask to field Pseudo Dragon, thanks to the Billy Club Global again. Two damage there, thanks to Pseudo Dragon Yanti combo from using the 1 investigation. He draws and rolls 2 sidekicks, gets a sidekick and a question mark. He's already used the energy fixer on this turn, so he can't fix that other one down to a mask. One issue that arises here, thanks to Arge's last turn. So Arge shrieked, Junior's shriek, which means she is no longer blanking Collector. He buys Zendala Simber, another attuned character, which is really going to ramp up the damage output. Resurrects with the last energy. Passes turn, decides not to attack. So Arge has free reign here to use Collector, which as of right this second, there are 1, 2, 3 villains in the field, or villain dice. Sorry, he did get his other, Scarlet Witch, which is another villain, as well as a huge defensive piece against Junior's team. The energy type of Norman Osborn is a fist, so he's looking to get at least one of those and use the ability. Arge might be thinking at this point too that he has Junior's game plan contained. I'm not going to say it's shut down, but it's contained, and he might be reaching for Danger Room soon. That way, Collector can just be on call and make the giant swing with these fields as large as they are. Buys a Norman Osborn with Collector's ability. 5 damage there from Collector. Junior down to 15, and just like that, the lead has switched. So Norman counts himself. So there's 4 villains on Arge's side and 1 on Junior's side. That's where the 5 comes from. At the end of turn, that Norman Osborn will be returned to its card, as per Collector's text. Chooses not to attack with Norman, which would pretty much just give... it would allow Junior to block with Shriek and choose a new target when she gets refielded. Doesn't want that to happen. Arge is pretty happy with the board state currently. Junior might be turning towards his Green Devil mask this turn, just to sort of bust up Arge's control-y field. Be looking for a shield in terms of that. Can't re-roll the double energy because of Scarlet Witch. Sort of a buzzkill for an action-based team for sure. If it would have landed action face, he would have had to include it in his reroll. He uses 2 fists for the Kree Captain Global, and then spends 3 for a Gold Dragon, which seems absurd, right? Spending 3 on that die, pretty darn good. So we'll see if Gold Dragon can come in and really shake up Arge's field with that Breath Weapon 3, as well as its giant stats. It also adds another attuned character to Junior's side. We'll see how Arge... oh, that's Danger Room. That's going to be big damage. He needs a fist here to get Norman Osborn. Yeesh. Doesn't get a fist, but the next best thing is Investigation. Draw and roll 2 dice. So, if it was me, I would be sweating right now that I didn't roll a fist, because all of the other pieces are in place here. Draw and roll 2, which is going to be, I think, 2 sidekicks. Must have been. 2 masks. That is absurd. Arge's rolls this game have been less than optimal, we'll call it. 3 masks and a shield, which I mean, even without a fist, the next best energy would probably not have been either a mask or a shield. He does have his danger room there, which isn't going to do anything this turn because without Norman Osborn, villains don't really matter much. But just in terms of what could have happened that turn, if he rolled a fist, he was going to play danger room. Every die would become a villain. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 on Arge's side, including Norman. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on Junior's team. Would have been a lot of damage. Instead, Arge is sitting here with 4 energy he can't really do anything with. I mean, worst case scenario, he sits on 2 masks for static field, and he spends a mask on Villainous Pact and a shield on Resurrection. He does choose to spend a mask on Villainous Pact and Resurrection. Are just gesturing around either out of aggravation or out of instruction of what he just did. He has to pass, keeps the 2 masks. He does have that static field global, which says pay a mask, target character returns to the field zone. Which could be good if these Yantis ever become large enough to push through. He does get his Zandala Simber. He had to re-roll Investigation, which is sort of a bummer, since Zandala and Pseudo Dragon and Yanti would all have triggered their attune abilities for 2 each, had it come up action phase again. I think the idea here is Junior is going to use Gold Dragon as his removal for Shriek. He could be using Rare Danger Rooms Global if he was hoarding enough bolts, but really the rolls have been dictating what both of these players have been doing this game. He buys a Cosmic Cube, which is going to be some more fuel for Attune if that Shriek ever does get removed. Sorry, if the Scarlet Witch gets removed, that's what's really being the jam. So the 2 masks here for Arge are going to come in handy. He's going to be able to push back 2 attacking dice. I imagine Shriek would be one of them since he doesn't want to knock Shriek out, allowing it to be refielded. He's going to block Shriek with Collector, which isn't going to be enough to kill it. And then uses the 2 masks to return the sidekicks to the field. Because again, Arge wants as many characters in the field as possible because they can all become villains. Isn't that pleasant? Everyone can be a villain. So same sort of thing here. He needs Rare Danger Room and a fist to really make this work. More sidekicks the merrier, because that's even more dice that can become villains and more damage to Junior. Didn't get any other sidekicks. Collector is also a once per turn ability, so he can use Rare Danger Room only on his turn. But in terms of villains, natural villains that are sitting in the field, it might be enough to finish Junior off on his turn, on Junior's turn. That's why he's keeping the 2 fists there. It's going to be 1 for this turn and 1 for Junior's turn in terms of bringing in a Norman Osborn. That's 14 damage. 14 damage. What a chunk. But that's the novelty of Collector, is he sort of puts a lot of control in your hands in terms of timing some of these combo teams. Which again, Arge super good at running those sorts of highly intricate timings, but the collector definitely makes that easier in terms of being able to use his ability on your turn, your opponent's turn. 14 damage. So, unless Junior can make it happen this turn, Arge will win on Junior's turn by activating Collector's ability at the end of his main step. So, that's the other issue, is that as soon as priority is passed, after Junior's main step, Arge will be bringing in another Norman Osborn and dealing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 damage. Did not get the gold dragon. Did not get the gold dragon, but I'm not sure that it would have much mattered. Because again, he wouldn't even have got to the attack step. Arge would have brought in Norman Osborn at the end of his main step. The real bummer is that Scarlet Witch making that investigation not be able to be rolled, because he could have used that attune damage to kill Scarlet Witch. He could have used the attune damage to kill Collector or Shriek. He's got tons of firepower in terms of attune in the field, just unable to use it thanks to Scarlet Witch hating on the actions. So he's going to, he spends 2 fists on Kree Captain, then spends 3 on another gold dragon. And that's the game right there. Great game from both players. What a hustle. Jeez, that was wild. Super great game from both players. That's only game 1, folks. In the top 8, it is a best of 3. So we will be right back with the second game. We'll see if Junior can bounce back, or we'll see if Arge can just make it happen in 2. But if you're enjoying the content, find me on these 2 social medias. Leave a comment in the comments. Tell me what you think. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys real soon.